the Rig Veda, it mentions a tribe called the Bharata tribe. Now, this tribe was basically a tribe from a very small area on the east of the Saraswati, but west of the Drishadvati, which is basically what is now Haryana and maybe a little bit of the adjoining areas of Rajasthan and Punjab. So it's a really, very, very small area, really. And in this small area was this tribe called the Bharatas. Now, at some point in the very deep beginnings of our history, this tribe had a chieftain called Sudas. And he and his guru, who was the Rishi Vasishtha, were faced with an existential crisis in that they were being attacked by these 10 tribes coming in from the west. So the Bharatas took it on. They crossed the Saraswati and went as far into Punjab, where they completely decimated and destroyed and defeated this alliance of 10 tribes. This is the first political event in Indian history that we know of. So on the banks of the river, the Bharatas destroyed the 10 tribes, and thereby setting up India's first empire. And then they swung eastward onto the side of the Yamuna, and where they defeated a chieftain called Veda. And so they had, by the standards of that time, a fairly large chunk of land and the first empire that had been created. So of course the whole thing now came to be known as the Bharata. But they then did something very, very unique. See, any tribe, any group of human beings having defeated other human beings, they will insist that, our God is the strongest, our civilization is the best, and therefore impose their civilization on everybody else that they had defeated. But the Bharatas did something totally different. They actually invited all the thinkers, poets, etc., of all these defeated tribes. And they compiled all their knowledge and information, their mantras and so on, into a text that we now know as the Rig Veda. So the Rig Veda does not only contain in it the chants and thoughts, etc., of Vasishtha, but also of his arch enemy, Vishwamitra, who was the guru of the 10 tribes. And many other rishis and their ideas were put in. So what happened is, interestingly, the idea of Bharat went from becoming an idea of a tribe to becoming an idea of a civilization. And that civilization is not one of imposition, but of plurality, of assimilation, right in the beginning. And so, as this idea spread, it ended up covering a very large area, the subcontinent, and in fact at one point spread across into Southeast Asia and so on. And so here is the genesis of the fact that why I, a Bengali, not from Haryana, proudly call myself all these thousands of years later a Bharatiya. I call myself by the name of this small tribe because the tribe, the Bharatas and Sudas, did not impose on me, instead assimilated me, gave me the respect, and allowed this civilization to grow through accretion. Now, this is where the idea of Bharat as civilization comes from. But what is the link with India? The link with India is very interesting, is that the Bharata tribe called their homeland, their original homeland, the Sapta Sindhu. This was and contrary to popular belief, the Sapta Sindhu is not the 5 rivers of Punjab plus Saraswati and Sindhu. That is not the Sapta Sindhu. The Sapta Sindhu relates to, and I've written about this in my book, Land of 7 Rivers, it relates purely to all the small little rivers that flow into the Saraswati river. In fact, made up the Saraswati. So that's why it related to a very, very small area. But the Bharatas called their land Sapta Sindhu. And this idea of Sapta Sindhu was what other countries began to call it. So if you read the Avesta, which was the Iranian text from roughly the same time, they mention the Sapta Sindhu in there, except they changed the pronunciation to Hapta Hindu. And that is the word where Hindu comes. It is a mispronunciation of the word Sindhu. And Sapta Sindhu then becomes the word by which the people in the Middle East begin to know the Indians. But notice that the word Sapta Sindhu was a geographical term used by the Bharatas to describe themselves. So eventually what happened, as the idea of Indic civilization grew, the idea of Sapta Sindhu also grew. So that is why you have in fact a chant in much later times, from Puranic times, which is still used quite widely, which is used, by the way, by many people in Western India, particularly when they are bathing, and they chant out 7 rivers. But then those 7 rivers have changed from these tiny number of rivers in and around Haryana to include later the Ganga, the Godavari, the Krishna, the Narmada, and so on. So what you can see is, just like the civilizational idea is spreading, the geographical idea is also spreading. And now this idea moves to the Middle East, to the Sapta Hindu, then it spreads further west and it becomes Hindu to Hindu or Indian. And so there are these 2 parallel ideas of India have existed from the very, very beginning. And in my view, depending on what you are really trying to express, they are interchangeable in certain contexts, and in other contexts they are distinct.
Namaste. We hope you enjoyed this Chitti Media content. Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.